You know, Chevrolet's 2025 Equinox EV was a huge deal. People loved its range, its tech, the whole package. So for 2026, you might expect some massive ground-up overhaul, right? Well, Chevy did something a little smarter. They decided to focus on refining what already works. So in this explainer, we're going to break down how a whole series of small, really thoughtful updates can add up to make a great electric SUV even better.
And here it is. Looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? But the real story for 2026, well, it's all in the details. These aren't huge, sweeping changes. They're subtle, they're smart, and they're targeted. Our job today is to dig in and see not just what's new, but more importantly, what those changes will actually feel like from behind the wheel.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with its refined new look. Then we're going to jump inside for the upgraded cabin and tech. After that, we'll get into the enhanced power and efficiency, and we'll wrap it all up with what's new for capability and confidence. So, let's get started.
All right, first up, the look. The 2026 Equinox EV gets a subtle, but I think important facelift. Chevy's goal here wasn't to reinvent the car, but to give it a more assertive, more modern presence out on the road. Think of it less as a redesign and more like sharpening the design's focus.
So what's actually different? Well, if you look at the front, the fascia has been refreshed, and it's got the sharper LED lighting. It gives the car a more focused, almost kind of determined look. They've also thrown in some new, more dynamic wheel designs and even expanded the color options, so you can really personalize the car's whole attitude. And here you can really see how all those little details just come together. The sharper lines, the new wheels, they create this look that's sleeker, more dynamic, giving it a sense of motion even when it's just sitting there. It's a really smart evolution of what was already a strong design.
Okay, now let's step inside, because the cabin is where some of the biggest upgrades are found. Chevy's focus in here was really on two things: making the experience more comfortable, and maybe more importantly, a whole lot more connected.
And here is the centerpiece of that tech upgrade, the infotainment screen. It grows to 11.3 inches. Now that might not sound like a huge jump, but it means bigger touch targets, easier to read menus, which makes a real difference when you're trying to stay focused on the road.
But the upgrades don't stop at the center screen. The driver gets a new high-def digital gauge cluster for much clearer info. But honestly, the real game changer is this. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are now standard. I mean, that means effortless connectivity. No more fumbling around with cables. It just works.
Okay, let's get into performance. The 2026 model builds on that responsive acceleration and solid range that the Equinox EV is already known for. The focus here is all about refining the power delivery and the overall efficiency. It's evolution, not revolution.
So Chevy's engineers have been making all these little tweaks to the motor output and the energy management systems, but what does that actually mean for the person behind the wheel? What's the real-world result of all this enhanced tuning?
Well, first, you're going to feel it in the acceleration. The improved motor tuning translates directly to a peppier, more responsive feel. It's all about making that instant electric torque feel even more immediate and satisfying, right from the moment you touch the pedal.
And second, you're going to see it in the range. By optimizing how the car manages its energy, Chevy has squeezed out more miles per charge. And look, this isn't just a number on a piece of paper. This is the freedom to go a little further and worry a little less on your actual daily drives.
All right, finally, let's talk about practicality. A car isn't just about its looks and its speed, it's about how it fits into your life. And for 2026, the Equinox EV gets a nice little boost in both its utility and your confidence as a driver.
So there are three key additions here. First, you can get available roof rails, which adds a whole new layer of versatility for carrying gear. On the tech front, the Driver Assist Suite gets upgraded with features like adaptive cruise control, which makes highway driving way less stressful. And for those tight spots, there's an available HD surround vision camera that just makes parking so much easier.
So, to sum it all up, the 2026 evolution is really about sharpening what already made the Equinox EV such a standout. It starts with those refined visuals for a more modern look. Then you add the smarter connectivity in the cabin, you enhance the performance for a better drive, and finally, you just boost its daily usability with new practical features.
So that brings us to the big question, right? The 2026 Equinox EV is all about smart refinement, not some total revolution. But in a fiercely competitive EV market, are these the upgrades that matter most? Better tech, more real-world range, and greater utility? Are those the details that are going to make the difference for drivers? That's the real question.